My name is Brian Wesley Johnson, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Soulivity Live. Hey, my sister, how are you?
This wine, right? Yeah. we might need some more wine for this.
So, let's get this party started, y'all. Hey, my sister, mademoiselle.
That is the most amazing introduction I have ever heard.
Oh. Of myself and Madison, Brian Wesley Johnson. Thank you for joining us on Saturday morning. You a life full of passion, purpose, and high quality living. See you next time. Bye. Everyone. Well, let's turn on the mic so you can actually hear me. Hello, everybody. This is Brian Wesley Johnson of Soulivity Live. I am so glad you joined us because, once again, you picked the perfect moment to get inspired. We have such a fantastic show for you today. We are speaking with author Don Joseph Goewey and how you can stop trying to fix yourself and live the life that you've always dreamed of. But before we begin, I want to tell you about another exciting Truth and Power series event with partner Beyond Words Publishing. In May, we are holding a special celebration of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I am looking forward to having a candid conversation about the beautiful cultures these people have given to our world. Now, you can watch this space for more announcements of our phenomenal panelists. And speaking of amazing panelists, I want to remind you that you can watch our last Truth and Power event where I moderated a celebration for Earth Day. We featured incredible women such as Claudia Wells, chairwoman of the Institute of Noetic Science, Dr. Tracy Ritchie, director of education for EarthDay.org, and Catriona McGregor, award-winning conservationist and author of the book Partnering with Nature. It was truly inspiring. Now, you can watch it now by going to our YouTube channel, where you can also watch great replays of all of our wonderful Soulivity TV shows. So, let's get to today's show, though. My very, very special guest today is Don Joseph Goewey. He is the executive director of the Center for Spiritual Exchange and the author of End of Stress and the Mystic Cool, and the editor of Stop Fixing Yourself, a concise collection of renowned spiritual teacher and author Anthony De Mello's major works. He's also worked at Stanford University Medical School Department of Psychiatry and headed the Center of Attitudinal Healing, which pioneered a psychospiritual approach to overcoming catastrophic life events, and that in 2005 was awarded the American Medical Association's Excellence in Medicine Award. Wow. So with that, it is my pleasure to welcome Don Joseph Goewey to Soulivity Live. How you doing, brother?
Doing fine. Thank you very much for having me.
I am so glad you're here. Listen, everybody. This is an interactive discussion. So if you have any comments or questions to Don or myself during the show, please just post it to our live chats and we'll respond during the show. So Don, wow, we were having a great discussion, everybody, before all this. I wish sometimes we need to tape some of that so that we can give you kind of like the behind the scenes, sneak peeks. I'm really looking forward to this. The book is amazing. Stop Fixing Yourself. Wake Up, All Is Well, right? We're going to dive into different aspects of the book. Also, I want to talk to a little bit about your life, your journey into experiencing this new awareness. So I want to start by reading a little bit of something, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about it. You say, like so many of us, I was raised on society's old formula that said if I worked hard, success would follow and then happiness would come out of that. But by midlife, it was clear to me that this wasn't how happiness happened. You would go on to say, I began to see that there was a whole program based on that formula that had been stamped into my brain, enforcing a set of demands about how the world should be, how I should be, and that I should strive for. And it was taking my life in the opposite direction of happiness. Wow. I mean, I think everybody who's read that, or even people out there who've heard that now, can identify that. Tell me about your life right before this moment of awareness for you.
Well, it came to me the hard way. I was, as you mentioned, I was working at Stanford University Medical School. And in the department, at first in the Department of Medicine, and the chairman of the department and I were banging heads. I was his executive. I was his chief operating officer. I was young, probably a little too young to have such a big position. I was a young Turk. And so I think after 2 years of banging his heads with me, that the chairman of the department decided he had enough and he fired me. Oh. And so I had spent, a decade climbing the career ladder to reach that height. And I was married. I had four kids, a mortgage, and making a good salary. And suddenly that was taken away from me, and my life was in trouble. And then 9 days after that, I got diagnosed with a brain tumor.
Oh,
and to add to that, my marriage was in trouble. I'd spent so much time focused on, climbing the career ladder. It came at the expense of really nourishing my relationship, and so I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And I would wake up. I did the surgery couldn't be scheduled for a month. Actually, it was 6 weeks. The guy it was a special kind of surgery. Guy was in Japan. He wasn't due back, and it was slow growing tumor, so I was okay there. So I thought I was relieved, but I didn't take into account the way in which that fear would ruminate and paint a darker and darker picture of fear. I certainly was given some evidence that I had something to be concerned about. They thought that there could be collateral damage from the surgery that would worsen what maybe the tumor had done, that could mean I would never work again. I'd need a walker. This side of my face would be paralyzed. There was a whole list of really horrible things to look at. And I would wake up at 2:00 in the morning for the first 2 weeks and stare out the window into the cold, dark night and imagine my doom. And, it's one thing when you yourself are doomed, but when you're taking a wife and 4 kids with you, and then, of course, what came with that is this feeling that I'd failed as a man, I'd failed my family, all of this stuff. It was horrible. And after 2 weeks of this, I don't know how it came to me, out of some grace perhaps, but some part of me asked me, look at what's worse, all of this fear and these pictures that you're painting of what the future holds for you, this doom, or the fear you're in right now, which is worse. And I said, well, I had with the fear I'm in right now, because that's what I'm in right now. And I had been exposed, through my career to some great minds, great psychologists, Carl Rogers being one of them. And I reflected, well, what is it that he'd tell me to do in this situation? And he'd say, feel it, feel the fear, embrace it. What you resist will persist.
That's
And
hard.
that was hard.
Yeah, I mean, most again, we'll get into some of the socialization and stuff of that later, but I mean, we typically run away or we bury it, right? We push it down, which creates disease in the first place, right?
Right.
I mean, so he tells you he tells you to do the thing that you're probably most afraid of, which is to feel all these different feelings and emotions that are going on.
Sure,
What happened?
embrace your suffering.
Yeah.
Who wants to do that?
You start picturing like the movie 300 and like, running and getting yourself stabbed. I mean, wow. I mean, so what happened at that point?
Well, I reminded myself that, like it or not, the way of resolving something is not going around it, but going through it. And there's a wonderful poem by Robert Frost that talks about that. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. And I think I thought in the back of my mind, I'll feel better. Well, I didn't.
Right.
I felt worse. As soon as I embraced it, it just ballooned, and it ballooned to the point where I had no choice but to ride it. It's sort of like, you're out in the Pacific Ocean and you catch a wave and the surfboard is bringing you to shore, but it's still a big wave. It could crush you. You have no choice but to ride it at some point, so I did. I rode it. And to my amazement, I rode it right to shore. It disappeared. The fear disappeared.
Wow.
And I understood for the first time, fear's illusion. I mean, illusions, they look real for a moment. Up close, they look real. But when you get a little further back, poof, and so it didn't take my mind very long, maybe 30 seconds, to reinvent another fear to balloon. I did that for half an hour. And at the end of that half hour, something had shifted in me. I was calmer. It was this gradual progress of being calmer and calmer until my mind was quiet and I actually felt at peace. And when I knew something had shifted dramatically, because when I looked out that window that previously was looking into the black hole that my life was sinking into, suddenly what I saw out there was the moonlight shimmering on this beautiful ancient oak tree in my yard,
right.
And it was, suddenly it was like that. This place I'm in is sacred. And so what am I going to do? I had a choice. You're going to trust this? Are you going to paint yourself into this other corner? And so I made my mind right then and there that whatever I had to face each and every day, and whatever fear that came up, whatever depression kind of put a cloud over me, I was going to ride it out this way.
Okay.
And let go of itself.
Okay.
And I had about a month to practice doing that. And over that period, I had fearful thoughts, but I didn't indulge any of them. None of them got a hold of me.
Right. And
when I went in for the cert, I had to go back to work too. To get my severance package at the medical school, I had to go back and finish a project there. Right. And I was realizing how much conflict I was in, actually how much stress I was creating just off of my attitude, that people that I had thought were working against me were just, they were just doing what they were doing. If it didn't agree with me, that didn't mean that they were my enemy.
Right.
And yet I could see it. I was functioning in that way. There was a certain paranoia and there was that paranoia came out of a need to control.
Right.
Control people, control the world. And I could see there was very little I controlled even before I got fired and had a brain tumor.
Right. Right.
out of that need to control and that paranoia and that frenzy, I wasn't able to see what's, in the serenity prayer. Give me the wisdom to know what I can change, and the wisdom to understand what I can't change, and to understand the difference. I didn't understand the difference. Take no prisoners and march in and take over.
Isn't that the essence of fear, right?
Yes.
Where everyone, fear in our mental capacity is part of our brainstem. When we're first born into this world, one of the first base things that we understand is fight or flight, right? How to protect ourselves. I mean, it's natural. We're all animals, human form, and so we want to protect ourselves from harm. But what we don't know the difference is between harm from like predators. I mean, like you're out here in the world where little chickens and other little lower prey are trying to not get eaten up, right? So they know how to distinguish between that. We're trying to do the same, but from emotional states to physical, right? And so you're in the situation where, you could die, you could leave your family with all these things, and all these different fears are coming up. Well, you don't know the difference between, what could change and where you could actually become joyful and happy and peaceful. And, getting run over by a car, the fear, that kind of reality. And so it becomes irrational. So we think irrationally during that, don't we? I mean, that fear just clouds our judgment and how we can perceive these situations.
Fear is irrational. It turns into attack and defense. They did a study at Cornell University, and people write down their worries over an extended period of time. And then they had them go back and determine which of those worries actually did not happen. And it turned out 85% of what people worried about didn't happen. And of course, when I give that statistic, somebody in the audience, some pessimist, always raises their hand and goes, well, what about the 15% that did happen?
So they focus.
They go, we get locked in and into continuing to worry. And they actually drilled down into that in the study and found that 79% of that 15% of things that happen, people surprised themselves at how well they handled the situation. Which meant when you do all of the math, 97% of the time, those people in that study were worried. There was nothing to worry about. There was nothing to stress about. And yet, how many of us wake up in the middle of the night in that way? And so I was beginning to, this brain tumor I was having was really becoming this incredible teacher to me to wake up. And I was discovering how simple waking up really was. How I used to think, being at peace in the middle of a difficult situation is hard. And I said, no, that's the opposite's true. Stressing and being afraid is hard. Being at peace makes everything easier. And
right.
I was watching that. And I wasn't getting an argument from my ego because my ego didn't have anything to tell me about my brain tumor that wasn't fearful, that didn't accuse me of failing my family and all of that. Well, I went into surgery with this, and the surgery was a complete success. In fact, it made medical history at the time. The surgeon who did it presented it at grand rounds, and neuroscience wasn't as far along as they are right now at that point. But if they had been, neuroscientists would have told me that during that 6-week period, when I made that shift in attitude from fear to peace, from doom to trust, from disempowering myself to allowing all that I am to empower what I had to face. If that mind body, that created a mind body condition within me that gave rise to an optimal medical outcome. And so it served me. And then the other thing that I thought was even more extraordinary was I got my job back. I didn't get it in that department, but the chairman of the Department of Psychiatry had heard about this guy who got fired, this family man fired, brain tumor, and yet everybody was marveling at how open and loving and peaceful and positive he was. And his name was Dr. Ganda. Dr. Ganda said, "I need that attitude on my team. So will you come over and work with us?" And wow, it was a miracle. And so,
and again, that was intentional, right? I mean, you shifted and you get moved out of where you were into this new space where you were embraced for the change that you just went through.
Right. Reality, I was being taken care of. Wow. And when it was left to me to take care of myself, it was a mess.
Wow.
And so there's nothing like a brain tumor to teach you the power of surrender. And so that's what it did for me. And it changed my whole career. I stayed in the Department of Psychiatry for a couple of years, recovered, healed, had another few difficulties I went through. My brother that I was very close to died. But as I came through, I approached it all in the same way. And eventually I left Stanford to find a work that was more aligned with this change of heart that I'd undergone. And where I ended up landing was working in around AIDS. It was at the height of the AIDS epidemic in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So I went and worked at an agency with really wonderful people. And then I ended up at the Center for Attitudinal Healing. And there we worked with some of the most stressful things anybody goes through. People with cancer and ALS, people with life-threatening illness, parents grieving the loss of a child, one of the most difficult things I think a human being goes through. The Clinton administration even sent us into Croatia and Bosnia during that genocidal war.
Oh, wow.
To work in the refugee camps. And it was that was a profound experience for me. And then along the way, I found the work of Anthony De Mello. And he and so that ultimately led a couple of years ago to signing on with the Center for Spiritual Exchange and directing the De Mello Spirituality Center and bringing his work more and more out into the world. He's been gone since 1987, but his work has continued to grow and grow and grow. He's had big influence on some of our great spiritual thinkers like Eckhart Tolle, like Ajasanti. So, and big influence on me.
I was going to, it's so funny. We're so in sync because I was going to go to that next, and you just graciously answered my question about it. Because again, as I'm seeing this, your trajectory of your life, this journey, right, where you decided to say, as in my father's thesis, he says, enough is enough, right? I'm not going to live my life from this space anymore. I'm being led to make a change. I'm being led to look at my life differently. And so you did that. And this whole world that was already there waiting, right? Already there, just burst open. And the one amazing thing about everything that you just said, I'm pretty sure our audience picked up on it too, was you were being led into additional experiences where you could share this birthing of your soul and the happiness and the joy that you had found in your own life through this shift with others who were going through tremendously painful experiences and probably needed that. They need to see that, right? And so that in of itself was a miracle for them.
Yes, and they for me. I mean, when in working at the Center for Attitudinal Healing, people used to say, "Boy, it must be a depressing place." So, sick people, people grieving. Quite the opposite.
Right.
You would watch people. We would run our support groups. We had a huge support group program, and we'd run it in the evening. At the end of the day, when people done with their medical stuff or with their work, and you would see people, pulling into the parking lot, coming into the center, some of them on walkers, some of them in wheelchairs, kind of struggling. You could see in their body language that it's been a long day. And I could really relate to that. I remembered that experience myself. And then at the end of the group of them sharing, them being this extraordinary support to one another. It's just ordinary people being with each other in extraordinary ways, which means in loving ways, holding that pain, that suffering, laughing together, moving through it. And you'd see them at the end of the group, they were brighter, they had more spring in their step. You'd hear laughter down the hallway as they made their way out to the parking lot. It always amazed me that we human beings are incredibly resilient.
Yes.
We can do when we're in our hearts, when we're in our spirit. And so I would tell people, I said, that's when I'm around. You might see in your head, when you think about my job, you might see sick people, grieving people, but that's what I'm surrounded by. I'm surrounded by enlightened people,
right?
And people who are in the moment, lighting their lives up, because in large measure, they're not looking to the world for it anymore, because in terms of the world, in terms of their body, in terms of their situation, things aren't going so well. Not in the way we define things as going well, but they're also in the process of discovering at the spiritual level, which is what I discovered, is that this brain tumor that I ended up getting, this being fired and then being put together to, a 1-2 punch on me. Right. I thought this is the worst thing that could have happened to me. And 6 weeks later, I'm saying this is the best thing that
could have ever happened to me.
Yes, and it's hard to believe when you're afraid of the future. It's impossible to believe when you're afraid of the future. But anybody out there, whatever you're going to go through, you have within you, no matter what, you have this reservoir of power, of love that can meet any challenge. And wow. As you let go of fear, it rises all by itself.
Wow.
Peace is our natural state. Happiness is our natural state. We're blocking it. And that's what Stop Fixing Yourself is all about. You don't, the wonderful message, the great, overwhelmingly powerful, lovely message of Stop Fixing Yourself is you're not broken.
No,
you're not some problem to be resolved. You've just been programmed into seeing a world that actually isn't even there, just like those people in the worry study. You're seeing something that's not there, and you're not seeing what is right there in front of you.
Wow.
And that is that you're held, you're loved. And all you're asked to do is to extend that love. And as you extend that love, in whatever situation you are, happiness arises in and of itself. It's your nature. When science goes looking for what's the evidence of human nature, the first place they look is children. What are we in our most original state, right?
I was just thinking about that.
Well, that's where
right?
they go to look.
Well, when a child, if a child falls down and hurts and like has a little bump, what do? They immediately cry. They get it all out.
They do. They embrace it.
They embrace it, and then 5 minutes later, they're out playing.
That's
Like
right.
nothing ever happened.
That's right. And the first thing they seek is love.
It's
right?
love.
They go to mama, right?
It's
And
love.
as soon as they get that shot of love, and children, my grandchildren, if when they were little, and they were they're getting bored and antsy, I'd throw crayons and blank paper out on the dining room table. They were gone for 2 hours. They were happy. They're alive. And we've lost that. We lose our connection with that.
Wow.
We get it programmed out of us as we grow up, and we get programmed into my happiness is something I have to earn. My happiness is something that I have to strive for. It's like what that passage you read. If I go out there in the world, I kick butt, I succeed, success will come, and then happiness will follow. And then people like your parents, they make a living off of people in their 40s and 50s in the midlife crisis. Is going like, where's the happiness? Where's the fulfillment?
And they're like, it's right here. Right here. Listen, we're going to take a short break, everybody, because this is such a great conversation. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the 4 false beliefs that block us from the happiness that you're talking about, Don. And so we're going to be back with more from Don Joseph Goewey on Soulivity Live. We'll be back in. Hey, everybody, and we are back with more from Don Joseph Goewey, author of the book, Stop Fixing Yourself. Wake up, all is well. We're going to talk a little bit about the 4 false beliefs. But before we do, I want to read one quick passage that relates to that. And it's early in the book, and it goes to everything that we're talking about here. And it's a little bit long, so just bear with me, everybody. It says, if you take a look at the way you've been put together and the way you function, you will find that inside your head, there's a whole program stamped into you, a set of demands about how the world should be, how you should be, and what you should want. Who's responsible for this programming? Not you. It really isn't you who decided even such basics as your wants, desires, and so-called needs, your values, your tastes, and your attitudes. It was your parents, your society, your culture, your religion, and your past experiences that fed the operating instructions into your computer. Now, however old you are or wherever you go, your computer goes along with you and is active and operating at each conscious moment of the day. Woo!
Quite true.
What a reality.
What that program is so often is fear-based. And that fear is separating you from this powerful, beautiful, loving nature that you were born with. There are people I've coached back when I was working with stress, and they had everything materially that anyone could possibly want. They were enormously successful in their lives, and yet they hadn't felt happiness. They hadn't felt at peace with themselves. They'd been striving, banging their head against that wall until they chipped away enough and it fell and moved their careers even forward. And it reached a point that some of them would say, I don't even know what happiness is. I don't know what peace is. I'm beginning to think it's just something, one of these gurus in India made up. to torture us with, that you if you give me enough money, I can give you what you don't have. And that turnaround for those people is always a turnaround to go inward. And it's not that you don't continue to work towards the things that are important to you in your life, that you feel passionate about. It doesn't mean you don't continue to succeed. It's just that you finally get that that is not the place to look for happiness. Happiness isn't going to come from that. Happiness comes from you. Peace isn't going to come from that. Peace comes from you. And that means you need to turn inward. And the very first thing you need to look for is what is blocking you. And what De Mello is telling you, if you take a look at the way you've been programmed, you will find what is blocking you. And it's a set of false beliefs about who you are and what you're supposed to do and what reality is.
Wow. And speaking of false beliefs, nice segue there. Thank you very much. There's 4 of them that De Mello talks about and that are part of this beautiful book. And I just want to kind of go through them and get your own feedback based upon your own experience. The first false belief, everyone, is you cannot be happy without the things that you are attached to and that you consider so precious. Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
So, if I'm not succeeding, I told you in the beginning when you and I were just talking that there was a period in my life when I wasn't succeeding. And, book sales weren't where I wanted them to be. My business wasn't where I wanted it to be. And I went to my mentor and I said, I think God lost my file, and I'm gonna sit quietly and I'm gonna bring this to his attention. And my mentor said, do you really think God cares if you sell more books? Do you think he cares if your business is, booming or not? And I said, yes, he should care. I mean, this is sacred work. He said, God cares about one thing, or the universe, whatever you want to call it, whatever created us, right? Cares about one thing, and that's that we're happy. And it was astounding to me. I don't know why. I just got it. God, you're right. And if you're not happy, there's something wrong with your thinking. Well, that's that false belief. And what Tony is saying, Anthony De Mello is saying, is there is not a single moment in your life when you don't have everything you need to be happy. Think about that for a moment.
Right.
And the reason that you're unhappy is you're focusing on what you don't have rather than what you have. And there's something about gratitude. Gratitude's an enormous spiritual power.
Oh, man.
You can go from being complaining and moaning one moment and to just simply by stopping and looking at right here and now, what do I have to be grateful for in my life? And we always have, there's always a list. And then as we relate to it, our whole attitude, our whole way of looking at things miraculously changes instantly. And we're in a whole new world, a whole new reality. And that's what Tony says, that reality, you make that shift by focusing here and now on what you have, on all the gifts that you've been granted. That's reality.
Right.
And where do you discover that? You discover that right here, right now. You don't have to go an inch further than right here, right now. Wow. But where are we? We're out there fearing the future. Exactly,
which goes to the second false belief, right?
Right.
Which is, everyone, happiness is in the future, right? It's down the road. How many of us were taught, you work hard for 30 years or 40 years, you put all this money away, and then you can be happy in retirement and go travel and see these different things. Listen, that's one way to do it.
It takes your 401k away from you, which the world will eventually mess with your idea of what it should be.
Right.
Because the world is the world. It's not here to fulfill your dreams. It's here for to create its own reality and for you to move through it.
Right.
And it's a beautiful reality. And when you begin to understand that your happiness is here in this moment, what you actually discover is that you're happy already.
Right.
You didn't even know it. You've been operating as if, I can't. My mother used to say, I'll be happy when my ship comes in. Well, she lived well into her 80s, and I never saw any ship come in, but I did see her sacrifice a lot of years when she could have been happy by being dissatisfied, by being disappointed. Well, right here, right now, all is well.
Right.
Wake up. That's what the subtitle of the book is.
And part of that too is
yourself. Wake up. All is
well, people. All is well. And
you're in the middle of a pandemic. All is well.
Right. And the other part of this, and it gets into the next part of this, which is happiness will come if you manage to change the next false belief. Happiness will come if you manage to change the situation you are in and the people around you, right? Well, you can be happy.
With that one, right?
Yeah, you can be happy right now, right?
Yes.
Because I think part of this is that mastering being happy in the moment and really fully embracing that all is well in this moment, that becomes the catalyst for the universe, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, to give you more of that. And you get more and more and more and more. And then every moment that you're in, you're happy, and you attract even more, and your flow increases. And all these beautiful miracles happen. I mean, you're an example. Your story is an example of that. Doesn't mean that you won't be tempted with fear or anything like that, because hey, we're spiritual beings living in a human existence, so those things are going to pop up. But it's how we deal with it, right? So again, happiness will come if you manage to change your situation you're in and the people around you. It's not true.
Yeah, what's true is that what makes you happy or unhappy is not the world, but your own attitude, your own thoughts, feelings, and attitudes towards the world. And De Mello says you might as well search for an eagle's nest on the bed of the ocean as to search for happiness in the world. In other words, remember that old country western song, I've been looking for love in all the wrong places. I've been looking for happiness too. It's not out there, it's in you.
Right.
You are blessed with the capacity to be happy. It takes a little bit of shifting to get there, and the way in which we shift is through awareness, through becoming more and more aware.
Wow.
But that's very important. And De Mello says, if changing the world is important to you, it's your vocation, go right ahead. I mean, there's some great people out there doing that right now, and God bless them for doing it. Black Lives Matter.
Exactly.
Keep working at it, but don't harbor the illusion that changing the world is going to make you happy.
Right.
You are going to make you happy.
Again,
period.
That's the multidimensional nature of our lives, right? There are things, again, this is important for I think for the audience, because you just brought up something that's very important, which is you talk about Black Lives Matter. There are things that are happening in our world today that do demand attention. We do need to change some of our systems. We do need to do some of that, because we as a collective, right? There's the collective part, and then there's us individually. The earth as a collective, and the people specifically here in our country that are going through certain things, they're saying to the rest of us, this needs to be addressed, right? It's kind of like, you don't try to deny your fear or deny your pain. You go through it. This is in part what Black Lives Matter is about as the collective. We're saying, hey, we need to deal with this, right?
Yes. Yeah, so, and it's wake up. This is unjust.
Let's wake up, right? Let's wake up to this.
It's kind of like your father's thesis. Enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
Enough
Enough.
subjugating people. Let's stop.
Exactly. Enough is enough.
And then but it's the same thing too internally. Enough is enough is subjugating myself to my own programming, which is littered with false beliefs.
Right.
That I don't even question.
Right.
That most people don't even question. So we're all running around reinforcing each other in a set of false beliefs until it completely bankrupts.
Exactly.
To finally get to the point where we go, enough's enough. This isn't working.
Right.
I get it. It's not working. And then we ask the question, well, then what is it that I need to do to wake up?
Right.
And the answer to that question is you need to be more aware of what's going on inside you than you've been aware. We're all really expert about what's going on outside, all expert about how you should or shouldn't manipulate it,
Right. Right.
But we're not, particularly men, are not that in touch with what's going on inside. And, how do you change something that you're not in touch with, that you don't see? How does a farmer remove the locust when he doesn't see the locust? He can't. So wake up.
Right.
So what does wake up mean? It means be aware. Be aware of the forces that are running you. And it's a very simple process. And it is not, it's not about fixing yourself at all.
Right.
It's about getting in touch with going on, allowing it to be as it is, understanding this is not you. This is coming from your program. But in that understanding that it's not happening to you, it's happening in you.
In you.
And that's where the change that you're reaching for will happen. It'll happen all by itself.
Right.
And the more you mess with it, the worse it's going to get. I think we all know that.
And let's do this final false belief. And then I want to continue something on that. And that is, if all your desires are fulfilled, you will finally be happy. So if I win the lottery, I'll be happy. If I get this job, I'll be happy. If I get married, or I find this guy, or I find this girl, or I have children, I will be happy. It's not true.
No, it's not true.
It's not true.
And we run on that, and I think everybody who's been on the planet even a few decades get that.
Right.
That you could make all those things, you could grow your hair, you could big head of hair, you could be an athlete and run faster, and you do all those things, and there's no guarantee that's going to give you happiness. It'll give you elation, but one of the things that we all know is that elation comes and goes pretty quick.
Right.
We're talking about that happiness that is an atmosphere that surrounds you and that extends from you, that is really natural to you, that doesn't go away any more than your sense of self goes away.
Right.
It is who you are, and you can block it, but you can't destroy it without destroying the whole organism, right? And so deep down in our hearts, what everybody wants is to be happy. Yeah. What everybody wants for their children, number one, I just want my kids to be happy. I don't care what they do. Some parents continue to impose it. Got to be a doctor. He's got to be successful. And, that leads to a whole lot of suffering in a family. But if you, even with a person like that, if you talk to them and penetrate, what do you think them being a doctor is going to do? They'll find happiness in that. That's what we want, even in distorted ways. We want happiness for ourselves. We want it for our children. And what we need to wake up to is 99 times out of 100, we're looking for it where it isn't. Where it will not be found because it's not there. It's in you.
You're talking, this is such a profound discussion, because I think, everyone, I want to be really clear in this discussion about happiness, right? We're talking about you making the decision and moving into the awareness. One, that you probably were attached to some stuff that you thought was going to make you happy and it's not making you happy, and that you have some beliefs based upon your past and your experiences and everything that you were taught as a kid when you came into this world and reinforced as you grew up, right? But that you're making a shift and a choice, that your baseline in every single moment is that I'm going to be happy. I'm going to choose to be happy in this moment, no matter if you're going through some pain, no matter if a fear pops up for yourself, if you're going through any kind of challenge, that you don't forget that choice, and that's your baseline. That's where your foundational thing is. Our foundation right now, or our normal, is living in fear of losing or not having or being defined as something different than what you were taught that you should be. I mean, all those different shoulds, right? So Don, you're beautifully stating again that, listen, we can have a new normal where when we wake up in the morning and we're saying, you know what, I'm grateful, I'm happy about everything that I have. You know, a beautiful wife, children, we have this beautiful home, or whatever it is, and that even without that, I'm alive, I'm breathing, I have great health, I'm moving forward with my life. There's always something to be happy about, and then that becomes the foundation.
Yeah, that's quite true. And we're focused outside of that. You know what? How De Mello defines an attachment is, he says all your suffering is a result of an attachment. And an attachment's an emotional state of clinging caused by the belief that without this thing or this person or this result, you can't be happy. And at some point, I invite your listeners to sit down with a blank piece of paper, and at the top of it to write, I cannot be happy unless or until. The one that I hear a lot lately, I can't be happy until this epidemic is gone. I can't be happy until I'm out of debt. I can't be happy till I get the promotion. It's interesting when I have people do this exercise, they fill up the list pretty fast. Well, I got a bunch of these. And then I tell them, now step back from this list, looking at it, and read it to yourself and tell yourself, this is why I'm suffering right now.
Right.
This is why I'm suffering, because none of this is true.
Right.
I have everything I need to be happy right here, right now. And the only reason I'm unhappy is I'm focusing on what I don't have as opposed to what I have. Back in 2008, I did a lot of volunteer work with people who lost their jobs and were going to be their homes were going into foreclosure. That nightmare our country went through, that so many people in our country went through. And I was, working with people, trying to get them back on their feet because they were so beleaguered and afraid of what the future was held for them. And the people who made the shift, attitudinal shift, that meant they showed up for a job interview or they showed up for a meeting with the bank, which they needed to make a case for themselves that advanced their lives. The people who showed up with that resilience and energy that would make you want to hire somebody like that or help somebody like that instead of somebody desperate, fear in their eyes, even sweating. The people who made the shift to the positive, the people stopped and said, look, today I got a roof over my head and over the head of my kids. I was doing that. That's what I brought to those people. I said, when I had that brain tumor, that was one thing that I grounded myself in. Today, there's a roof over the head. There's food in the refrigerator. There's money to put gas in the car. I don't have to be afraid and feel separate from the world. I can hug my kids. I can take support from other people. Those people who did that, all of them made a shift. People who didn't do that struggled for much longer. That's, all of us know that that's true. And so if we know it's true, that's what we need to lean into as we face whatever we face. And I don't mean to minimize what people are facing out there in this epidemic. Those are problems, but the thing that turns problems into challenges that strengthen our self-confidence, by our capacity to meet them, isn't a shift in attitude. That's all it is a shift in attitude.
Right.
And then we end up in a place when we make the shift in attitude of having compassion for ourselves when we do get down, or compassion for other people who are struggling. But we know when we're in that there's a shift we can make, and the first shift is to, first of all, embrace the pain you're in and to map that pain to what you were thinking that generated that pain, and to take responsibility for it. Although you didn't program your brain, you got programmed into that, but be responsible. As I used to tell my son when he said, "Well, you made me this way," and I said, "Yeah, but you're responsible for it now." And he hated it when I would say that, but it was true. I told him I had to face that. I used to blame my parents, but now it's for me to undo this.
Yeah, and that's the beauty. And again, this is specifically for the parents. When you embrace and understand how the programming of your belief system came about, and you start, releasing that and picking a new normal, then your children, you're passing that on to your children now, instead of passing on the programming that was there for generations and generations and generations. Wow.
Yes.
Don, dude, will you come back? I mean, we got so much more to talk about. I mean,
I would love to, absolutely.
This is fantastic. Listen, everybody, the book is Stop Fixing Yourself, Wake Up, All is Well. It's a collection of different thoughts from Anthony De Mello, edited by our own Don Joseph Goewey. Man, yeah, we got to have you back soon, dude.
And if people are interested in the book, all they got to do is to go to stopfixingyourself.com, and they'll be at our website.
Absolutely. Or you can go buy it at Beyond Words Publishing, or wherever
or Amazon.
Or Amazon, wherever books are sold. Go get it today. You will not regret it. I'm loving. I'm on my second read now, because it's just so powerful. So thanks again, man, for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right, everybody. We're talking about a lot of things that can be empowering for you. And follow us on social media. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter as well. You're probably watching from our Facebook page, but go and follow us. You can get announcements about everything that's coming up. You can learn about upcoming shows, events, and even our amazing giveaways. And also check out our Go Shop. There's products and services that are there, from inspirational products that will feed your soul, books and beauty items, a whole bunch of other things that are there as well. So, but I want to once again thank our guest, Don Joseph Goewey, for being on the show today. You can find Stop Fixing Yourself on Beyond Words Publishing, their website, or wherever books are sold. And of course, until next time, on behalf of Don and myself, this is Brian Wesley Johnson, wishing you a life full of passion, purpose, and high quality living. We'll see you next time. Bye.